Has it occurred to you yet that they were never your customer in the first place?
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up.
There's a lot of people panicking right now because of the sudden jump, as far as I should say, the long expected jump in silver prices that as of right now, it's December 10th, 2025, $60 an ounce. I had a discussion with somebody earlier today that, in 2017, you could still buy it at $17, $18 an ounce. And so what you're seeing is a lot of silversmiths leaving the trade. They say they can't afford it anymore because the price of silver plate is just going through the roof. And that's valid. But I would argue that maybe they misunderstood their customer base. Let me explain. The most common type of silver jewelry that you're going to see small silversmiths produce is stuff like this little ammonite that's been put in a silver setting. And this started off as a piece of silver sheet that somebody cut the back out of, and then they traced the outline of the stone, and they built this little, we'll call it a bezel. It's not really a bezel, trim piece around the ammonite. This little trim, and that's real legitimate work. Here's the problem: is the world has been spoiled by the ready supply of third world labor. And it's been great for a lot of folks. It's made very expensive things very affordable. The problem is that they don't ask what that's at the cost of, right? We complain about rising prices of things because of import duties, but especially when it comes to jewelry, right? Why is there this expectation that jewelry should be subsidized by substandard living conditions or human trafficking, right? And let's be clear, there's a significant amount of the industry that is completely just sick with this. You see people go online and they go to these streaming shows to buy these little scoops, right? I'm looking for just some little cabs, but they buy, these little guys, and they get a scoop for like, a buck, or a scoop for $5 or even $20, right? And all they're thinking is good deal. And it's not even occurring to them that there's a high likelihood that that stone in that cheap scoop was either produced by a chain smoking 10-year-old in Jaipur on an auto cabber, or sometimes by people living in slavery conditions in China or elsewhere. They don't think about the fact that it costs money for the diamond hones to cut these things, or the cabbing wheels, or the lapidary blades, which a good trim saw blade, for example, can easily be $300-400. Can't really pay for that when you're selling stones for a buck, right? They don't think about this. And here's the problem: is customers who have been spoiled by very low prices, subsidized by third world substandard living conditions. What's the main segment driving little bits of jewelry like this, right? It's like these younger females in their, mid 20s to sometimes early 40s, mainly early 30s, that are into this kind of boho chic style, right? And this kind of ring is very, very easy to produce. This isn't actually set in, by the way. It's just in there with poster tack. I was using it as a demo for a customer, but I digress. The very, very easy for a chain smoking 10-year-old to produce a ring like this. And so they do at great scale. It's very, very easy for a chain smoking 10-year-old to produce something like this. I'm not saying that there's no skill involved in it. Obviously, there is. But what I mean is that skill can be easily be acquired over time by a chain smoking 10-year-old in a third world country who is picking up a trade out of desperation and maybe getting $1 a day for his work. So your boho chic customer who's very price conscious, the same boho chic customers that were buying lots of their boho chic stuff off of Temu, when they see your stuff at the Maker Festival, they see something like this, they're already shopping you against Temu, or they're shopping you against whatever cheap, place that they found it on eBay or at whatever flea market where somebody brought in a bunch of cheap. It never occurs to them what the actual human cost of this stuff is. And the problem is you're not going to educate them, right? It's hard to educate a customer that doesn't want to know the truth. And that's why it's true what I said in the beginning. It's worth considering that they were never your customer. They might have been a buyer, right? But for them to be a customer implies that there's a relationship, one of trust or one of respect, right? They either trust that you're going to, be a good supplier of something that they have a regular need of, or in the case of artisan work, they enjoy your artisanship, your artistry, and they want to be a part of that. That's why people buy art. They want to feel like they're a part of something. It's hard to convince them to break their Temu thinking when you're producing a product that looks so much like Temu. So then, of course, these silversmiths are leaving the market because their customers don't want to pay reasonable prices because they weren't customers. They were just buyers, right? And does that mean that they have to move over into, investment casting like I do? No. Number one, plenty of beautiful rings are produced with sand casting, which is cheap and inexpensive to get into, right? Or there are things that you can do to differentiate something like this from Temu. You can build a relationship with a local lapidary, and then you can, buy these little micro cabs and work those into your design somehow. You can get away from this bezel setting and actually start producing bezels, right? Which are really easy to do when you're sand casting, especially. There's 1,000 different ways that you can kind of branch out and differentiate yourself. And you can still go for the boho chic segment just by keeping your metal weight down, right? This is just a fun little geometric pendant that I produce that actually does really well with the boho chic customer. The younger women love this kind of stuff, and they're willing to pay a price for it because they can't find this on Temu. There's something different. And I didn't even have to set any stones, right? The point is that a lot of us, it seems, have gotten, and that's artisans in the jewelry segment as a whole, whether that's lapidarists or faceters or gem sellers or silversmiths. A lot of us have become addicted to these bargain shoppers. They're not good customers. You can't build a livelihood off of them, as many people are finding out, and then they're just giving up rather than looking for what their customer should have been in the first place. Whether that means I level up my game a little bit or try some new designs or actually start charging the prices that I need to support myself and my art, you know? The and even with investment casting. Okay? So the temptation is to start cranking out little settings like this. This is straight from the sprue tree. It's not been cleaned up or anything. So you can see a little bit of investment still stuck in the crevices. But even for something like this, right? Most of your demand is going to come from customers who bought cheap facets that are out of calibration, which means you're going to need to generate a custom setting for each stone, or rather than properly setting the stone, you're just going to be bending prongs with a pair of pliers like a butcher. None of us get into this to be butchers. None of us, right? We want to be artists. We want to see what we can create out of metal. We are excited about what we can do when we generate things out of different types of materials or get access to new materials. So then don't be a butcher. Don't placate that customer that was only ever a buyer in the first place. If you've been making, $4 per item from a quote unquote regular customer that buys once a week, it's not a regular customer. It's not a good customer. That's not a good margin. We have to get into this mindset of understanding that bargain shoppers are not our friends. A bargain shopper is an insult. It's somebody that refuses to acknowledge the time, the expertise, and the significant expense that goes into our art. They don't understand, and they don't want to understand that, a good set of burrs, for example, if you actually want a prong set, like you actually care about what you're doing, a good set of Twin X crosscut burrs is really expensive. Sometimes you can spend $50 a burr, depending on, right? They don't know that. They don't want to know that. And because they don't want to know that, that means that they don't want to respect your art, right? So then why would you want them as a customer, as a buyer? It's time for a lot of us to start considering firing our customers. I would rather get a part-time job to subsidize my hobby or keep my day job longer. I'd rather wait to go full-time with my art if that means that I'm waiting to find customers who are actually just as captivated and just as fascinated by the stones and the metal as I am. I don't want the boho chic customer. I want somebody that looks at something beautiful like a Shangan amethyst and says, "Oh wow, that really does look like a storm cloud inside of there." Right? That's something wonderful and beautiful. That's worth gazing at and wonder. It's hard material to get. It's not something to be bargain shopped. Just food for thought, guys.